Seems fair to me.
Yes, he did.
Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Do you remember? The 21st night of September. Hey, you will after this show. Thanks for joining us for Donnybrook. Let's meet the panelists, starting with Wendy Wiese, co-host of the Jennifer and Wendy Show on the Big 550 KTRS. Bill McClellan from the Post-Dispatch and STLtoday.com. Ray Hartmann, not only founder of the Riverfront Times, but he admits it. And he's the columnist at Substack for Ray Hartmann's St. Louis Views. And from the St. Louis American, we welcome Alvin Reid. We also welcome the artwork of Brian Blaylock, local artist, who has donated this beauty for Just Above the Mantle. You know, this is our continuing Lend Us Some Art program here at 9PBS. And if you're an artist and want to share yours, please contact us. Meanwhile, you can get more of Mr. Blaylock's work on Instagram at @BlaylockArt. That's @BlaylockArt. All right, Bill, we're starting with you. It really wasn't a very good week for St. Louis's Moonlight Ramble. For the first time in its quarter-century history, it was actually canceled at the last minute. According to Ed Rich, who used to be an assignment editor for Channel 5, he's now with the Maplewood Richmond Heights School District, he said that there was all sorts of commotion with people riding their three-wheeled vehicles and mini scooters around the race, and I guess organizers just felt that they couldn't make the race safe. But what do you think this says about St. Louis? We canceled the Labor Day parade. We don't have Fair St. Louis anymore, in its old form anyway. Are we like in a slump or what?
Well, we are in a slump, and I think these are separate things. But a friend of mine lives in the Central West End and is a participant in that Moonlight Ramble every year, was really depressed about it. And he said that, you know, there were people moving the barricades so they could drive through, and that what Mr. Rich was talking about was downtown. You know, it was another night of chaos downtown with the kids on those little kamikaze scooters and the three-wheelers. And I just found it very depressing that we can no longer have something like a bike ride to secure, 6 miles of streets. And I would like to see the mayor call the police chief in and say, we're going to reschedule this in 2 weeks, and you and I are going to ride in it. And we can do this. I mean, the idea that, well, it's just chaos downtown, we can't go. I found it very depressing.
You sat on that one. That was such a good idea. I think I'm going to shut up right now. Okay. Yeah, rescheduling. That's a really good idea. All right. There you go. Wow. Yeah, why didn't I think of that? What I did think of was, you know, there was supposed to be security, but it sounded like whoever the security was just didn't didn't do their job. Now, I think there had to be some type of correlation with the police, the number of police, and obviously, I guess there should have been more police. But at the same time, whoever the organizers were, if that's who hired the security people to keep the thing secure, then the organizers are partly at fault.
And they wouldn't even name who that security was.
So there's just some, I agree it's a shame. And I mean, if you can't do things like that, then what's the point?
And that is a great idea, and I hope that maybe they will take a look at that. But cyclists must be really optimistic people, because I have to tell you that every single week we go through the litany of challenges that this city is facing. And for that reason, I mean, it's almost like on a loop. It's week after week after week. I'm surprised that there was a Moonlight Ramble at all, frankly. Honestly, with everything from 911 to the little girl who lost her legs, I'm surprised. I am.
Well, I understand. I'm not, and I check to the power, as we say in Carver, Bill.
I mean,
no, really.
I won't say anything else for the rest of the show.
Because what we can't have, obviously we talk about these issues and we need to, but we can't have a self-fulfilling prophecy. We can't just give up. And it's not, I'm not saying, I'm not minimizing anything. The fact is, most of the time, most of us are safe, and we can't give up. We gotta, I like what you're saying, we've gotta, and I do think it can start with the political leadership in the city and leaders, business leaders for that matter, stating affirmatively, we're just not going to take this. We are going to take this head on.
But they've had an opportunity so many times, from the riverboat that was stuck in the middle of the river and the people didn't feel safe departing or disembarking, and they had to call the police.
I get that, but you can't give up.
There are a number of stories in this week that since our last show that were pretty disconcerting, including, as you mentioned, that the 911 system was so poorly staffed that they told the police, don't do anything unless we call you. Then you had the Railway Exchange, which was at one point the largest building in the country, and apparently squatters have gone in there and plundered the place because they haven't secured that, and the owner has no security. Then the Coronado Hotel right around the corner from us apparently is a terrible place to live, and it's, I forget what news source gave us that, maybe the RFT, and then we find out that the Ely Walker Lofts building has no insurance, and that's going to, wearing a handbasket.
Well, those owners are in trouble.
Right. But that comes down to ownership of building and property.
Right.
I will say this, and just to be honest, I have done the Ramble twice. I was a younger guy at the time. I've done it twice. I wouldn't do it now. I mean, that sounds fun, but I said, no, I'm going to pass on that, because of the situation. And you know what? I might have gone. It may have been a perfectly great evening like it was in the past, but for some reason I said, I'm going to pass on the midnight bike ride downtown. I mean,
I think if Mayor Jones had a come to Jesus press conference, I mean, if she were as strong, if she conveyed the same strength to the criminals as she does, I mean, just with her demeanor, I think things might change.
No, I don't think.
I don't agree. I've said that too. That I think, for one, like just the day that we're going to have a press conference, and we're not going to talk about being genteel and
that's right.
And all that. I'm just saying, like, I'm cleaning it up.
She did.
I'm starting today.
To her credit, she did have some harsh words for St. Louisans after the Janae Edmondson tragedy. But she also had a press conference this week, Ray Hartmann, where she talked about bringing back red light cameras and traffic cameras. Red light cameras are, of course, at red lights, and the traffic cameras measure speed. They are all but gone in the state of Missouri after successful litigation in front of the Missouri Supreme Court in 2015. Do you think they're going to come back to St. Louis?
I think they probably are. I don't think they should, at least in the current form that they are. I wrote a Substack on this today, and my objection to them is the structure, is the fact that the basic there's a defect, what you call it, a structural, I can't remember my
You
own
wrote
words.
the column.
I don't know what the heck I said. I don't want to. What?
Structural defect.
Well, that's not what I said. But anyway, the fact is that the companies that they outsource this to and cities make more money the more crime is found. And so they have a built-in incentive to take steps that actually encourage and more violations. So a good example is longer yellow lights are known to cut down a little bit, at least, the number of people running red lights, okay? Guess who fights longer yellow lights, okay? The people who make more money, the more red lights there are. And there are plenty of other civil liberties related issues with this that I also feel strongly about. But the big one is, if they're going to do this with an outside company, it needs to be for a flat fee, and nobody, whether it's the city or the company, should get incentivized for higher numbers of violators.
You may remember last time there was a San Antonio law firm that administered the program. Frankly, it's going to have to be administered by someone outside of St. Louis.
It was actually not. It was a Phoenix company called
Well, San Antonio is where my letters came from.
That's the lawyers they use. But
as a matter of fact, who was that litigant who took this to the Supreme Court?
But anyway,
great man.
Here's the thing. If they can identify the driver, which is not an easy thing to do, in this city, sometimes people drive around without license plates, so I don't even know how they'll identify the car. But they're talking about having a police officer, a human being, take a look at a photo of the driver and then try and match that to a government record.
That's what they've always said to do.
No, they did not
Well,
have
no,
to
that's
do
one of the
that.
things they got to mention. This is what they got to do to comply.
That's what they're going to have to do, but that's so labor-intensive.
By the way,
And we don't have enough police officers.
They don't.
No, I get that. And Shane Cohn, who did this, I had a chance to talk to, was one of the best aldermen. He really made a good faith effort to make this, you know, it complies with the law. They're doing their best with it, but I continue to object to the concept.
Okay, we got
you
that.
did
Okay,
I still think you got to do something, and I applaud the mayor for doing this. At least it's a step in the right direction.
I think it's just totally unconstitutional. I mean, the police know where the robbers are. They can't go kick their door in and start looking around. This is wrong. This is wrong. And you know who's going to end up with tickets? People with no money. Because people with money are going to hire a lawyer, and they'll either go to the $50 ticket person. I've only been there once. And then, or they'll just say, like, I'll see you in court. And you know what's going to happen? It's like, now, we don't have the time or the money to be litigating these cases. So you're just creating another typhoon out of nothing. It won't raise money. It'll just give people more reason to
It'll raise money.
It'll give people more reason not to come to St. Louis, like we just talked about. Just don't.
Well, how about if there was some way that, you know, we're not trying to get people who just try to beat the yellow and just get a red. The real danger comes from these people who just blow through the red. I mean, you see.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. I mean, they're just.
One of the most important things you have to tell your child when you're teaching them how to drive is green does not mean go.
Always look, yeah.
Well, here's the
Does
thing.
not mean go.
Andy Karanjiff, viewer of this program, and a supporter of Channel 9, the owner of Crown Candy Kitchen,
Andy.
he posts photos of the cars barreling through the lights near his 14th Street restaurant.
Right.
Now, why doesn't somebody put up speed bumps? Why don't they put a police officer there? Why is there such inertia to take care of these basic problems?
I think the speed bumps are a good idea. The police staffing issue is, we know what that is.
And they can't chase.
But
so, I mean,
well, that's not the. I don't think that's the big problem. I think the staffing and just the priorities and so forth are a problem.
Let's move on because of time. Sorry about that, Reid,
No.
because we have so many topics to talk about. Now we'll go to St. Charles County, Wendy, where again parents are upset with the books that are in the St. Charles City County Library. Some parents met in front of the Board of Trustees for the library last week. Maybe it was earlier this week, and said that there's a couple of books, including It's Perfectly Normal, which is a book for kids to learn about sex and sexuality. And then there's a book called Bang Like a Porn Star, which apparently is used by people in the gay community to learn techniques. So they want these books off the shelves. What do you think?
I think that they should not be on the shelves if you want to have them available to the public. In the same way that Sudafed and other medications that are used and that are used for one thing but can be used for nefarious purposes as well. You know, take a card to the librarian, have it, you know, have the transaction take place that way. If it should be in the library at all.
I don't have a problem with being in the library, and I agree with you. I think there really is no, I'm one of those, there's no gray area. You got to either be all in on the books or all out. And these people are all out on the books, and that's why they're there. They don't care about the title of that second one. They're more concerned about going down there, and I want to show them that anything I want to take out of this library, I'll take out of this library because I'm an American. And don't ever back down to that. Now, the card thing on that second book, oh yeah, I believe that's a good idea.
I don't like it. I think that if you want to, nobody's making anybody take a book out of the library. And if somebody wants to go in and get any of those books, I don't think you should have to be like in the old days where you go to the bookstore and or the drugstore and the guy comes back with a paper bag with your magazine in it. I think you ought to be able to just... What are you laughing?
No, I don't remember that. Tell us about those days. I don't know what you're talking about.
I think you ought to just be able to go in. The books should be on the shelves, and you ought to be able to
They should be on the shelves where the little kids are.
Yes, I think they should be on the shelves. And I will tell you.
In close proximity to the little kids.
Sure.
There shouldn't be a special section.
Little
There should be a
kids.
special section for the little kids.
Right.
And then the rest of the library should be the adult section. And
Right, and listen, I think
Like,
you know
should
what?
like a skull and crossbones, or I mean something, you know, to
no,
keep kids
a sign
away.
that says children's library.
And then adult library.
It's a library. You know what bothers me about this? I'm with Bill. I am fine with them being. I'm fine with them being on the shelves.
Well, of course.
Well, I am, and I'll tell you why. Because it used to be we had this divide in the country between red and blue. Now it's starting to be a divide between the pro-democracy side and the anti-democracy side. And it's like I've just had it with all the book burners and the book banners and all this. We need to get back to a place where, you know, nobody's forced anybody to go to the library. I'm not talking about little toddlers. I mean, that isn't the issue. The issue is they're trying to make a culture war statement, and I'm one of the people that's just sick of it.
That's where I was coming from, too. I mean, I think that these folks, I don't
want to hear it.
I don't want to hear it. I'm with you, Ray. I just think that you're either for speech or you're not. Yeah. And I wish, with all due respect to these moms in St. Charles, are they as concerned about like guns?
The things
guns,
that they...
Guns really, I mean, we're banning books, but guns you can carry.
They want more guns.
Okay, so, and I'm not necessarily against gun rights at all.
I'm not against gun rights either.
I mean, I think you can get guns and ammo at the library. Yeah. I'm not kidding.
And I think you should be able to.
You're going to be able to.
Not real guns and ammo. I mean the magazine.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
You scared me
Bill
for a minute.
McClellan, I want to ask you about a plan by St. Louis attorney Jerry Schlichter, who has already started a campaign to draw Afghan refugees to St. Louis. Now he's turning attention, in this age of many people crossing the border from the south, to bring in Latino immigrants, refugees from south of the border. And the idea is they'll add to the vitality of the economy and make this a greater place to live, and it'll also provide a great place for these people who need a great place to live, which I agree with. But if you're a Latino and you know that St. Louis has one of the lowest percentages of Spanish-speaking people in the country. We're about 2% Latino, and there are more Latinos actually living in St. Charles County than in St. Louis City. Do you really want to come here to St. Louis?
Well, I think it's a great thing that Jerry Schlichter is doing. You know, I was made a tamale run today to Cherokee Street. You know, I go there to get my tortillas and queso de Chihuahua and tamales, and I just think it's a wonderful thing to have more and more immigrants come, and I salute any effort to bring them here. And you read about St. Louis in its heyday, you know, in 1890, 1900, and they talk about all the different languages you could hear on the streets, and there were newspapers in different languages, and I think that's great. And the big draw for Latinos that I talk to is always, this is a cheap place to live. You know, Chicago and LA certainly have larger Latino communities, but it's more expensive. And I think that if Mr. Schlichter can get 3,000 Latinos to come here, then it's a chain thing. They start telling their relatives,
that's right.
Hey, St. Louis is a nice place to live, and it's relatively inexpensive. So I think this is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. Jerry Schlichter is a really good citizen. And
Amen.
He's exactly what I'm talking about when we talk about having a can-do, kind of not having the self-fulfilling prophecy. People that are willing to stand up and talk about what we can do instead of dwelling on our problems, and exclusively. And, you know, this ought to be a calling card. We obviously, as a region, are concerned about population, kind, and it's St. Louis, for whatever faults it has, is a generally welcoming place to outsiders, to new people. And I think it would be in this case. I think the example of the Bosnian Muslims is a good one. And you'll notice that they don't necessarily all stay where they came. I mean, in this case, the Bosnian Muslims are all over the community now, as opposed to just when they came to the city, and that's to whatever choices they make. But I think that we absolutely could make this a calling card, and I think those folks would form a community to start with that would be good. I just think it's a great idea.
I think it's tough, though, if you're coming to this city and let's say you're Dominican. Where do you get Dominican ice? You can get it everywhere in the Bronx. There's going to be so many cultural hurdles, not to mention the language. I think very few people speak Spanish in our area compared to other parts of the United States.
Well, Missouri has made English the official language.
Yeah, well, that's...
I mean, we're not a welcoming state.
That's what I was going to say.
I agree with that.
But we're a welcoming city,
Yeah.
and maybe you can get the Dominican ice in New York or Chicago, but the cost of living is quite a bit higher.
I mean, I think it's as individuals here, there, everywhere we are, but I can't say that St. Louis County, St. Charles County is welcoming to people from other parts of the world. I don't think so.
I think we are.
I think
there's a woman named Jessica Bueller who started called Welcome Neighbor, and she formed all these moms to help immigrants. And I think there's more of that than maybe gets the headlines.
Okay, now I could.
But Alvin, I do have a question for you.
Churches.
How welcoming are the students and the faculty when it comes to the chancellor and the president of Webster University? This week, the students protested the chancellor's $1 million salary and the president's $858,000 salary, and the faculty senate voted 59 to 41. No confidence against the chancellor. Ms. Strobel.
You know, I'm kind of 50-50 on no confidence votes, because I think sometimes the no confidence vote is like, yeah, I have no confidence in you because you expect me to work 37.5 hours a week. You know, that's outrageous. Based on the show last week, which I guess everybody watched and got whipped into a furor. I still think it is a private school. And this private school decided that our chancellor can be paid $1 million. I think that if the curators, trustees, whatever Webster has decided that, you know, that's too high, well, the next person shouldn't get it. But now they've decided that you didn't earn your $1 million, that's a different story.
And they have announced, the chairman of the board of trustees announced they are looking for a new chancellor.
So obviously they feel as though they could get more for their money. But whoever they hire, I don't think they're coming in here for $250,000 a year. So I mean, if she makes $1 million, well, how much is the next one gonna make? Because I think the people protesting out there think that they are going to just, you know, hire somebody. They're going to come in and work for, you know, like I said, $250,000, and it's not going to happen.
I think you could get somebody plenty good.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Right.
But that ain't gonna happen.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think this has been such a slap in the face to a lot of Webster people.
Oh my God!
And I agree with
the
you
alums.
that you know, like I said last week, in the private world, CEOs get paid more than they should. Even when things start to go bad, they say, well, this is when you really need our experience. I think it's all malarkey, but it's the way of the world.
Well, and this is an institution that was founded by the Sisters of Loretto. So if you know, obviously they're gone, but that makes it even harder, I think, to swallow when you look at the strong alumni situation here in St. Louis. It just doesn't even compute anymore.
I mean, I would do it for $250,000. But
I think we're all available. Sure, I'll be there. I don't know any qualifications, but I'll do it. I think we're all acutely aware that what we think in this case really doesn't matter. But I will tell you who does matter, and that are the students and faculty attending at that university.
That's right.
And that's an entirely different matter. And if they speak up, that's the constituencies that cannot be ignored, and I think we'll see how this plays out.
Well, Bill, what would you make of Tom Sullivan, who was a government watchdog? In fact, I think he has a letter to Donnybrook that we'll read in a moment or two. Tom Sullivan has pointed out that Sam Page and some members of the St. Louis County Council have received political donations from Boeing. At the same time, they voted to give Boeing $155 million in tax breaks for its $1.8 billion planned expansion.
Well, Tom Sullivan also said in his note to Shalonda Webb, he quoted a Ray Hartmann column and said, you can't argue with Ray. And I thought, yes, you can. and on this one, I don't have any problem with corporations giving money to politicians when it's above board. I mean, we know that Boeing gave money to Dr. Page. We know that Boeing gave money to these people, and that's fine. It's legal to give money to them, and I still think giving money to Boeing was a good idea, and I know that Mr. Sullivan goes along with my partner here, Ray.
Well,
disagrees.
I, as a Gemini, I certainly can argue with Ray, let me tell you. And I probably disappoint Tom. It was nice of him. And Tom is really another good citizen, a good watchdog, and I don't always agree with. But, you know, I generally...
Okay. I'm afraid we're out. Okay, well, let's see what Tom had to say, because he wrote one of the letters that we're about to go to. And we'll go to those right now, I think. Oh, no? Oh, there we are. Tom Sullivan, University City, wrote, in a recent year, Boeing had $100 billion in revenue and $15 billion in profit. It doesn't need a $155 million subsidy from St. Louis County. Thank you, Tom. We also heard from Ken Nicholas of South County. I paraphrase the great visionary Jacqueline Brennan Wexler, who transformed Webster University in the 60s and 70s. An institution's leader should never remain in that position for more than 10 years. Thanks, Ken, but I resemble that remark. Morris Fletcher of Kirkwood wrote, allowing counties to freeze senior citizen property taxes continues the attempt by conservative lawmakers to destroy public education while attracting senior votes. Thank you. And Dr. Brian L. Sesser of Ladue wrote, Charlie hit the nail on the head when he correlated the high cost of tuition at Webster University with the proliferation of administrators and their outrageous salaries. His words were sweet poetry. You can share your thoughts, care of 9 PBS, 3655 Olive Street, 63108. Don't forget those emails, Donnybrook at 9 PBS. And those tweets or posts, hashtag Donnybrook STL. You can also call the 9 line, 314-512-9094, and listen to your favorite podcast source. Or listen to us on your favorite podcast source, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn. That is sweet poetry. Thank you, Dr. L. Sesser, for sharing your brilliance. And everybody, thank you very much for joining us this half hour. We'll see you next week at this time.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9 PBS.